Coach, and I'm with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club. I would like to show you the Union Pacific 119040 engine that joined the Central Pacific Jupiter at Promontory Summit, Utah for the Golden Spike ceremony. It is in the 2019 catalog, volume 2, on page 9, with the Jupiter on page 8. By the way, this video complements the CLRC Central Pacific Jupiter video. The Union Pacific number 119 met the Jupiter on May 10, 1869 at Promontory Summit, where the first transcontinental railroad from Sacramento, California to Omaha, Nebraska in the United States was officially completed. Promontory Summit, Utah Territory had been agreed upon as the point where the two railheads would officially meet. The last spike celebrations were to be held on May 8th, but had to be postponed for 2 days because of bad weather and a labor dispute on the Union Pacific side. Over 400 laid-off, unpaid graders and tie cutters chained the Union Pacific Railroad Vice President Thomas Durant's dignitary rail car to a siding in Piedmont, Wyoming, until he wired for money to pay them. After almost a 2-day delay, when Durant's train arrived at the Devil's Gate Bridge in Wyoming, floodwaters turned a mild creek into a raging torrent, which threatened to collapse the railroad bridge. The engineer would not take his locomotive across the rickety structure, but he gave each of his passenger cars a hefty heave and they coasted across. At this point, Durant no longer had a way to get to Promontory. A hasty telegraph to Ogden, Utah Territory sent Union Pacific's engine 119 to the rescue. After a hearty party in Ogden the night of May 9th, the dignitaries arrived at Promontory Summit on the morning of May 10th, where the Golden Spike ceremony finally took place, with the last iron spike driven at 12:47 p.m. The event at Promontory Summit was billed as the Wedding of the Rails. In 1975, the National Park Service embarked on a project to reproduce the Union Pacific 119 and Central Pacific Jupiter exactly as they had appeared in 1869. Disney animator and steam engine owner Ward Kimball did color matching and original artwork for the Jupiter and the 119. An example of his artwork is the Sand Dome, which has special detail paintings of Johnny Appleseed, and the other side of the dome is painted of Jim Bridger, an American mountain man. A little bit of trivia. The UP number 119 was featured in the Big Bang Theory episode, The Communication Deterioration, when Sheldon shows a photo of the locomotive to Penny. How about that? Looking at the bottom of the engine, you can see that I have number 243 of 260 made. So I got one of the last engines produced. You can see that the detail goes to the bottom of the engine also, and the tender. And here you got some chains to hold the trucks onto the tender if they should ever separate. And what's also nice is that you can see the pickup rolls go up to 7 inches and they're tethered so that they will be able to go over switches without any complications or hesitations. And that is because the engine is tethered to the tender with this cable. And what I like about the cable, it isn't loopy and it doesn't have any excess wire to get in the way of the look. The beauty of this engine starts with the cow catcher, and I like this hookup for a car in front to be able to pull back going backwards. The stack is real nice. You got the light on top of the boiler. You have the piston cylinder here, real shiny. You got all this piping. You got the bell. I always like these bells on these things. All this piping from the sand dome to the wheels. Look at that, how that goes. You have the steam dome, and look at these 3 different wires coming out here. I really don't know what they are supposed to represent, but it's kind of cool that they're there. And those eventually get power to the cylinders for the pistons to propel the engine forward. This engine I looked up, had about 300 horsepower. So that'd be good for about maybe a half a dozen cars. So quite an engine for that time. One thing I want to point out too is on this engine, I also used a paperclip pin, which I use for connecting the tender and the engine, and actually the tender with the first passenger car. And yes, I used the tweezers to attach this. Zooming in on the tender, you can see the nice bright red wheels. I like the green and the red backing of the golden 119. You have the Union Pacific Railroad. All that is really sharp. I really like how this tender is painted. You can see how the 119, the gold 119, sits right on top of that green background. And then you see these nice corner pictures on both sides of the engine, and those really add something. Very pretty tender. On top of the tender, you can see the coal load and these utility boxes here. And what's nice about this utility box, you can see where the run program switch is. And then you can see where the water fill is and a back utility box. To complement the era of these passenger cars, Lionel is using drawbars to attach the cars rather than using the knuckles that we're used to. To add a little pizzazz to this train consist, I always liked how the general engines or the old-time engines had livestock or horse cars attached to their trains. And I wanted to do this with this one here. So what I did, I took this car and I added a paper clip hole here, and then I extended all the way to the back, and this has a bend here so that when the engine pulls, it doesn't pull it out. And once it's hooked up, it really adds to the consist. Here you have the sound passenger car. You can program the car right here with the play run switch. Here is the volume switch, and here is the Lionel number. When I start up a train, what I like to do is load the coal into the tender. Then what I like to do is get sequence control going, and then asking the dispatcher if we can move. So let's start it out. So first, we will get some coal in the tender by doing the reset button. Once we get the coal going.
My coal's full. Over. Affirmative. Out.
We can do the aux 1 button to get the sequence controls, and that will get a whistle and a bell. And now let's see if we can get clearance with the dispatcher.
Engine to dispatcher. Are we clear to make a move? Negative. Please hold. Over.
I always hate it when you try to get clearance and they say no. So let's see if we can get clearance.
This is the dispatcher. Take the green. Over. Acknowledged. I've got clear boards. Out. Engine to dispatcher. Clear signal in the cab. We're underway. Over. Roger that. Have a good one. Out.
I'm sure you know that the whistle sound and the bell sounds are somewhat traditional in the Lionel scenario, but I've always liked the Lionel rail sounds. Let's take a moment to listen to some of the rail sounds that come from the Union Pacific 119.
Tower, we are at restricted speed. My coal's full. Out. Tower, how are we looking up ahead? All clear. Over. That's affirmative. Clear ahead. Over. Copy. All clear ahead. Out. Locomotive to the dispatcher. Are we still clear all the way? Over. Yeah, you're on clear track. Over.
After much delay, we're finally making it to Promontory Summit, where we will be laying the last spike on the Transcontinental Railroad. Meeting up with the Jupiter and the crowd ready to complete the ceremony. The Union Pacific finally made it for the ceremony, where the first golden spike will be ceremoniously staked, and then we'll finish with the iron stake.
We are done for the day. Heading to the register room to sign out. Out.
This is Herb Coach with the Chicagoland Lionel Railroad Club, enjoying Promontory Summit and the laying of the last golden spike, followed by the iron spike. Over and out.